This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit TemptationsTreats.com to learn more.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back. In the late 1990s, the U.S. Congress passed and the President signed the JFK Assassinations Record Act, which mandated that all of the government's classified documents regarding the assassination of our 35th President, John F. Kennedy, on November 22nd, 1963, be released in 2017. When that date line came in 2017, it was President Donald Trump's original intention to release all that material, but at the last minute, he released about 80% of the material, but held back 20%. I asked him why, and he told me that CIA Director Mike Pompeo had opposed the release of the material because he said it would reveal the sources and methods of the agency. Well, I thought that was weird because the sources were all dead, and frankly, I'd like to know their methods. If the Central Intelligence Agency was involved in the murder of an American president, well, we need to know it. During his campaign to return to the White House, President Trump, I think not only because of the warm relationship he has achieved with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his nominee for the Department of Health and Human Services, but also because he, true, wants the truth before the American people. He announced on January 23rd, as he committed in the campaign, that he would declassify all of the documents that pertain to the murder of John F. Kennedy. Well, some in Congress realize the bureaucratic games that are played. One of them joins us today, Congressman Tim Burchett of East Tennessee. This guy is a fighter for the taxpayers and a real acolyte and apostle for the U.S. Constitution. He's a fighter. No one will ever call Tim Burchett a rhino, but he's written what I think is a very important letter to President Trump, and co-signing it with him are two other members of Congress, David Cohen and David Schweikert. Now, Cohen is a Democrat. I'm not certain about Congressman Schweikert, but I am certain about the strong advice that you give the president in this letter. Congressman Burchett, who's on with us now, wrote a letter that urges the president to direct all other federal agencies, including the CIA, the FBI, the State Department, and the Department of Defense, as well as the Internal Revenue Service, to also review their materials in their possession and to transmit any and all remaining records that relate to the assassination of President Kennedy to the Archivist of the United States. Congressman Cohen and Burchett and their colleague also want to direct the activists of the United States to remove all redactions from the documents in the President John F. Kennedy assassination records collection within 90 days. They also urge the president to rescind the current transparency plan for the Kennedy assassination documents, which resulted in continued stonewalling by federal agencies like the CIA. Furthermore, they urge the president to direct the Archivist of the United States to utilize available resources at the National Archives to collect, compile, and prepare these records for public release within at least 120 days. Further, they want the Archivist of the United States to utilize all the available resources of the National Archives to uniformly digitize all these records relating to the JFK assassination for public release and make them easily searchable. In addition, they want the president to direct the Archivist of the United States and the National Archives to release in full, without redactions, all documents relating to the assassination for the American people, again, within 120 days. They furthermore want the president to assign a senior White House staff member to monitor the process and ensure compliance with full implementation of the president's approved disclosure plan. Then they suggest the president establish an independent oversight board to ensure that all agencies have complied with his directive. And then lastly, to direct the Archivist of the United States to request the release of the deed of gift material and solicit all other known assassination-related materials that happen to be in private collections that were excluded from the original JFK Act in 1933 to be included in the official John F. Kennedy assassinations record collection. The two congressmen, Burchett and Cohn, and their colleague, say, we believe the principles and structure of the JFK Act may be instructive and serve as a model for the upcoming release, also ordered by President Trump, of the records pertaining to the assassination of Senator Robert F. Kennedy of New York and Dr. Martin Luther King. This is a very well put together letter, and it anticipates, I think wisely, the efforts by those still in the government, still in the deep state. At some point, we're going to have to get the Los Angeles Police Department records regarding the assassination of RFK Sr., as well as the Memphis police records regarding the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. Congressman Burchett, welcome to the Roger Stone Show. I am so happy that you, a fighter, have taken on this issue.
Thing you said about me, you're awful kind, but Cohen is the attorney, and he, I got to give him full credit, but because I told him, I said, look, Steve, I just say you release this stuff or we're going to fire your ass. But apparently that wasn't. And that was pre-Doge, I believe, when it was written too. So now I think America realizes that there's a new sheriff in town, and he is going to he's going to go through this stuff pretty fast. And I couldn't agree with you more that we need this out. And to me, it's about arrogance and it's about power and control, and that's what Washington D.C. is all about. And corruption. It's just the way they've done business, and that's why they can't. That's why they're trying to denounce Trump. And I don't know if you saw his poll numbers today, but they're through the roof. And the Democrats are just they're just circling the wagons, trying to figure out what to do to bring him down, and they're not able to. And this is just another example. Why are they all not on board with this thing? It just, to me, it speaks to the depth of the corruption in Washington.
I don't think there is any American who was of age when they heard that President John F. Kennedy had been shot. Listen to this.
John F. Kennedy died at approximately 1 o'clock Central Standard Time today here in Dallas. He died of a gunshot wound in the brain. Dr. Berkeley told me it's a simple matter, Tom, of a bullet right through the head.
Now, the only person who couldn't remember where they were that day was George H.W. Bush. For 30 years, he couldn't remember where he was, which is interesting because, well, he was in Dallas, Texas. How about that?
How about that?
That was the voice of Malcolm Kilduff. Now, interestingly, Malcolm Kilduff was the acting press secretary for JFK, or the assistant deputy press secretary. His press secretary, Pierre Solinger, had stayed back in Washington. Kilduff says in his memoirs that minutes later he found himself on the elevator with the new president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and he said to him, Mr. President, who would do this? Who would do such a horrible thing? And LBJ said it was a communist, son. And Kilduff said, a communist? What kind of a communist? It was a Russian communist, son. The problem was, of course, Lee Harvey Oswald had not yet been identified and apprehended. Isn't that curious? And then just last week, we heard this tape, this audio, which was turned up by the great-grandson of Billy Sol Estes, one of Lyndon Johnson's cronies, who would later go to prison for corruption. This is a conversation between Cliff Carter, the executive director of the Democrat National Committee under Lyndon Johnson, basically Lyndon Johnson's right-hand man, his political operative, and Billy Sal Estes, the flamboyant Texas wheeler-dealer. Let's roll it.
You're good about treating me today.
Well, Saul, it's been a pretty touch-and-go situation. Lyndon and I have had quite a few unpleasant words here lately over the deal that he hired Mike Wallace to assassinate the president. It's been hectic in every way, but we've lived through it this far, and I guess we'll continue to do so. Lyndon should have never issued that order to Mike, but we've had our differences, and I'm a true blue to Lyndon, as I've always been, and tried to carry out every order that he'd ever given me. But this is one I'll probably never be able to forget.
There you have it. You have two of Lyndon Johnson's cronies admitting that LBJ hired Malcolm Mac Wallace to shoot and kill President John F. Kennedy. We know this because Wallace left his fingerprints on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building, on the window encasement, and on the paperback boxes that fashioned the crow's nest. We're going to be right back with our guest, U.S. Congressman Tim Burchett, fighter for the American people and for the average taxpayer, in just a minute, so don't go away.
This is the Roger Stone Show. Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group. Now, here's Roger Stone.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track, and ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code listen50 for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50, code listen50. T's and C's apply.
PMS, pregnancy, menopause. Being a woman is a lot. Ollie supports you and yours with expert solutions for every age and life stage. They just launched 2 new products exclusively at Walmart. Period Hero combats bloat, mood swings, and more during PMS. And Balance Perimeno to support hormonal balance, mood, and metabolism during perimenopause. Grab yours at Ollie.com.
Ollie!
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
We're back. We're talking to one of my favorite guests, Congressman Tim Burchett from East Tennessee. He was former mayor of Knox County, Tennessee. And thanks to natural growth and good stewardship of tax dollars, his administration was able to build new schools, launch infrastructure projects, and pay down their debt, all without raising taxes. It's the kind of people we need in Washington. Prior to his tenure as Knox County mayor, he started a successful small business before serving 16 years in the state legislature, then 4 years in the state House, followed by, 12 years in the state Senate. He is a member of the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability. That's where the action is, folks. Foreign Affairs and Transportation and Infrastructure. Happy to have him on the show because he and Congressman Steve Cohen, generally speaking, I don't like bald guys with big ponytails, but in this case, the congressman's done the right thing. And this is a bipartisan effort to make sure that the bureaucrats embedded deep in the national security, the archivist, and other branches of government aren't hiding everything. You see, everything did not go into the official JFK assassination record archive, and that's what the president has demanded be released, so that none of these other documents that will expose what really happened on November 22nd, 1963 can be exposed. Congressman Burchett, you are courageous to take this issue on.
Well, thank you, Mr. Stone. I really appreciate it. You show a lot more courage than most Americans will ever have, and hopefully they'll never have to endure the crap that they put you through. Every time I'm going to go on with you, my wife always says, those people did him ugly, baby. And I said, you're dang right, they did. Well, they did you incredibly ugly.
Well, look, I may be materially poor, but I am spiritually richer. And I prayed fervently for victory in the last election, and I must say God delivered. And Donald Trump is a force of nature. I mean, this is the most consequential first 3 weeks of a presidency, and never mind 100 days. The first 3 weeks have been extraordinary. The left is going crazy because Elon Musk has found not millions, billions and billions of dollars of waste and fraud and illegal activity paid for by you and I, the taxpayers, by USAID. Now, USAID was actually never made legal by the Congress. It was created by executive order by President John F. Kennedy. And the idea was to take America funding and help poorer developing nations. Not a bad motive at the time, but it has morphed into something much greater. It's morphed into a slush fund for the deep state. They've used it to topple governments. They used it in the impeachment against Trump. They used it to promote the fake narrative of January 6th. They paid millions of dollars to the New York Times. They paid millions of dollars to Politico. I think we're going to get to the bottom in our next week's show of all the money they have spent. This was not their purpose. And the left is going out of their minds. I have to ask you, Tim, what do you think of what Elon Musk and his Doge Commission is doing?
I think it's a start. Because I think when you delve into things like a Pentagon or the Department of Education, you will see how that the Department of Education, they've leveraged their money. It's around 10% of what some states get. You know, they have local and state monies and others that they apply, yet they control the whole thing. And it's just, that they're indoctrinating our children. The teachers union, you'd think, would be for tearing down the Department of Education if they were, in fact, for paying teachers more. No, therefore, growing their union and growing the machine, not the product. And so it's I can't wait till they delve into that. And then when they get to the Pentagon, Katie, bar the door. If I could say one more thing about the Kennedy assassination,
sure,
if that would be okay. I always remember my dad was an old World War II Marine in the Pacific. He was on Peleliu and Okinawa, and then he went to China and fought the communists. Then he went to the University of Tennessee for 40 years, was a dean there, and he fought the communists there. But the truth was that the gun that they claimed that Oswald used was called it was an Italian carbine. I believe it was a Mannlicher is what they called it. And that was a gun. I remember Daddy had a book and all the guns, and we had one of those. And I can remember, I think it shot around, and the whole gun just almost flew apart. It was titled "The Gun That Never Won a War," and they could have gone into a Western Auto and bought an M1 with a scope or something for under $100 back then, and yet they chose that. The whole thing just does not fit, and they need to release it. America is ready. They are tired of this deep state. But going back to Doge, I'm a big fan of what they're doing. I've been railing on USAID for years. We started delving into it, and nobody would give us the time of day about it. You know how it is on Capitol Hill, Mr. Stone. You start, oh, that's just a bunch of tinfoil hat, and then they label you that, and then you can't get it out. But here comes Elon Musk just out of nowhere, and Donald Trump, he is a force of nature, as you stated, is making these claims, and then they're backing them up. And it's just, he's laying it on them so fast. And they're old school. If you saw that crazy press conference where all those Democrats were out there ranting and raving in front of the USAID office, they just look like fools. I used to, when I was early in my political career, I figured out a tactic. If you hit somebody, just keep hitting them fast, and they're old school, it'll take them about a day to respond, and you'll already be on to the third thing or fourth thing by then. And that's exactly what the Democrats are doing. They're showing their old school nature, and they're getting stomped. And I'm glad for it. But I tell you, people better watch. Again, you mentioned rhinos. I told Marjorie Taylor Greene the other day, our problem isn't with the Marxists on the left. It's going to be with these Republicans that claim to be, have Doge tattooed on their foreheads. Where the hell have they been the last 4 years? They've been yelling at people like me for trying to make meaningful cuts and laughing at me. And those days are over. And I hope people will start paying attention, not just, and I want them past this victory lap that they're on, this euphoric high, because when we start digging into it, it's going to cut both ways. You're going to find Republicans whose wife and or girlfriend works for one of these agencies or delves deep or has received some sort of funding for a family member or somebody, just like Biden did. Probably not as blatant, but you're going to see it. And I hope we hold those people accountable as well, because that does not help the party. It does not help the country that we have people that are like that in our stall.
Well, I saw those Democrats storming the education department, and it occurred to me that they're not going to let Maxine Waters wear that wig in prison. I tried to get a cut of Hound Dog Taylor singing "Give Me Back My Wig," but I didn't get it for today's show. But as far as the rifle's concerned, it was a Mannlicher Carcano World War II vintage rifle. But why didn't Lee Harvey Oswald have any nitrate, no powder burns on his chest or his arms or his hands?
Yeah.
And what about the Mauser rifle that was held up for the AP reporters by a Dallas police officer, which is probably one of the weapons that shot John F. Kennedy? A lot more to find out about this. And thanks to Tim Burchett, we are going to get the facts. Thanks to Donald Trump and his colleague Steve Cohn and Congressman Tim Burchett. Tim, thank you for joining us here on the Roger Stone Show, and God bless you, my friend.
God has blessed me. Thank you, Mr. Stone.